September 16th, 1,943 Tunsokina, Airfield, Bougainville, Solomon Islands. The air smells of salt, oil, and death. Captain James Jimmy Sweat squints against the tropical sun as his wingman spirals downward, an F4U Corsair turning into a black smoked comet that vanishes into the jungle canopy. His radio crackles with a half scream, then silence. Third loss this week. Not from enemy brilliance, not from engine failure, from bullets that never hit what they were meant to kill. Sweat replays the gun camera footage that night. Frame by frame, it shows his own tracers, 400 rounds, streaming past a Japanese Zero. Above, below, to both sides, a perfect cage of fire with nothing caught inside. 2 minutes later, that same Zero shoots down his wingman. Across the South Pacific, Marine fighter squadrons are bleeding. Their statistics are grim. The legendary Corsair, fastest propeller-driven fighter in the Pacific, delivers only a 3.2 to 1 kill ratio. On paper, it should dominate 6 50 caliber Browning M2S, 3,000 rounds of ammunition, enough to carve sky from metal. In practice, pilots expend hundreds of rounds for a single kill. The problem isn't courage, it isn't training, it isn't the gun. It's geometry gun harmonization, the invisible point where all 6 barrels' trajectories are supposed to meet. Factory engineers set that convergence at 1,000 feet. In theory, a perfect balance between range and accuracy. In reality, it turns the sky into a lottery. The Corsair's bullets fan out across a 30-foot circle at that distance, a margin almost identical to a Zero's wingspan. Marine Fighter Squadron 213, the Hellhawks, burns 890 rounds for every confirmed kill. At that rate, the Marines will run out of ammunition before they run out of enemies. Major Gregory Pappy Boyington, visiting from the Black Sheep Squadron, VMF 214, studies Sweat's footage and shakes his head. "You're shooting at ghosts," he mutters. He's right. The tracers are everywhere, except where they need to be. And then, quietly, in a maintenance tent far from the flight line, a 6-year-old ordnance sergeant studies the same film. He's no engineer, no officer, just a mechanic with a wrench and a mind that refuses to accept bad math. His name, Staff Sergeant Michael "Mickey" McCarthy. McCarthy's job is to load guns and keep them from jamming. Yet while others see spent shell casings, he sees equations. He grew up in a South Boston garage, fixing engines by feel, learning that mechanical truth never bends to hierarchy. Now, in 1943, amid heat, mosquitoes, and the endless roar of R2800 engines, he notices a pattern every pilot ignores. The issue isn't marksmanship, it's physics. The convergence point is too far. At 1,000 feet, bullets take nearly a second to reach the target. In that second, a Zero traveling 300 miles per hour moves almost half that distance. Pilots aim at where the target was, not where it will be. At 300 feet, however, the math flips. Bullets arrive in a third of a second. The margin of error shrinks. The same 6 guns would pour their fire into an area no larger than a dinner plate. McCarthy runs the numbers in his head, no slide rule, no drafting board, just instinct honed from greasy nights under car hoods. The outcome is devastatingly clear. Close the distance, and you turn precision into obliteration. But official doctrine forbids it. Marine Aviation Command orders harmonization no closer than 500 feet. Anything tighter, engineers claim, risks cracking wing mounts and overstressing the airframe. The memo is explicit. Gun convergence below 500 feet exceeds structural limits. Translation: don't try, don't think, just follow orders. Meanwhile, pilots keep dying. In September alone, Marine fighters lose 47 aircraft across the Solomons. Gun camera footage tells the same tragedy. Hundreds of hits that maim but never kill. Fuel tanks punctured, fuselages riddled, but enemies keep flying. Japanese intercepts mock the Americans. Corsairs fast, but shooting weak. Bullets scatter like rain. Stay close, they cannot hit accurately. The Imperial Japanese Navy has learned to bait Marines, forcing them to waste ammunition, then counterattacking once their guns run dry. By mid-month, the campaign teeters. Air superiority decides whether the U.S. Navy can support the next amphibious landing. Lose the skies, and the entire island-hopping strategy collapses. General Roy Geiger, commander of the 1st Marine Aircraft Wing, gathers squadron leaders. "We have the best aircraft, the best pilots," he says grimly. "But we're losing because we can't hit what we shoot at." The silence in the room is heavier than steel. No one has an answer. No one except the sergeant with a wrench. September 17, 1943. McCarthy signs out a copy of the Corsair's technical manual, something enlisted ordnance men never do. He studies the harmonization diagram until the pages are smudged with grease. Then he walks to the flight line, climbs onto Bureau No. 17883 Captain Sweat's plane, and measures every gun mount angle by hand. His realization is heresy. The only real solution is to violate the safety order. That night, after the hangar doors close, McCarthy recruits 2 fellow ordnancemen. Under the dim yellow light, they realign Sweat's Corsair. Each gun is tilted inward 2.4 degrees, enough to bring convergence to 300 feet. To compensate for recoil stress, McCarthy improvises reinforcement plates cut from scrap wing metal. Crude, ugly, functional. They weld until 0400, then bore sight the guns against a makeshift frame on the beach. When the first test burst roars out over the Pacific, the mounts hold. No cracks, no failure, only a solid stream of light carving the darkness. At dawn, Sweat arrives for patrol and stops dead. The barrels on his Corsair angle noticeably inward. "What did you do to my guns, McCarthy?" "Adjusted convergence, sir." "To what distance?" 300 feet, sir." Sweat blinks. "That's illegal." "Yes, sir," McCarthy answers. "If it doesn't work, you'll court-martial me. If it does, you won't have to." Sweat hesitates, thinking of the black smoke that swallowed his wingman days ago, thinking of bullets that never hit. Then he nods once. "Let's find out." At 8:30 a.m., 4 Corsairs of VMF 213 intercept, 9 Zeros, and 6 Val dive bombers over Bougainville. Sweat dives from 18,000 feet. He waits 400 yards, 350, 320, then squeezes the trigger. 80 rounds. 1 second. The Zero doesn't explode, it ceases to exist. The Zero disintegrates mid-air, a flash of white flame and aluminum fragments raining over the jungle. Sweat pulls up, heart hammering, eyes wide behind his goggles. He doesn't even have time to register the shock before he sees another enemy turning in. Instinct takes over. He lines up, fires again, 1 second, 80 rounds, and watches the Japanese fighter's left wing tear completely off. Third target a blank, half-second burst canopy explodes, the plane rolls inverted, spiraling to the ground. 3 kills, 45 seconds, 200 rounds. His wingmen haven't even opened fire yet. When Sweat lands back at Tokina Airfield, his Corsair still holds more than half its ammunition. The mechanics and pilots gather silently around his plane, staring at the barrels now blackened with powder. Major Wade Britt, VMF 213's commander, steps forward. "What did you do to this aircraft?" McCarthy stands rigid. "Adjusted the convergence to 300 feet, sir." 300? Britt's voice is flat, dangerous. "You're aware that's below the structural limit?" "Yes, sir." "Modified without authorization?" "Yes, sir." "Did you file a formal request?" "No, sir." Lieutenant Colonel Millington, the operations officer who issued the very memo forbidding such a change, storms in. "This is a direct violation of Marine Air Group policy. You'll be court-martialed for endangering personnel." Before Britt can respond, Sweat speaks up. "Sir, I just shot down 5 enemy aircraft with 200 rounds. Before today, I couldn't hit one with 400. Millington's face reddens. "That's irrelevant. Protocols exist for a reason." Another pilot, Lieutenant Robert Hansen, steps forward. "Permission to have my guns modified the same way, sir." "Denied," Millington snaps. Hansen doesn't flinch. "Sir, with respect, we're dying out there. McCarthy just proved it works." The hangar erupts into argument. Engineers quoting manuals, pilots shouting about survival, officers demanding order. Finally, Major Britt whistles sharply. The noise dies. "Sergeant McCarthy," he says evenly, "can you modify every Corsair in this squadron by tomorrow morning?" Millington looks horrified. "You cannot authorize in." "I'm not asking your permission, Colonel," Britt interrupts coldly. "If it works, court-martial me. If it doesn't, the Japanese will kill us anyway."
We haven't much time, Major.
He turns to McCarthy. "Get it done."
Where is
And
the
so,
intelligence
the
report?
wrench that defied an entire bureaucracy goes to work. That night, the maintenance hangar glows like a forge. Sparks shower as
500
McCarthy
feet.
and his crew Wilkins and Reyes cut and weld reinforcement plates into every aircraft wing. 22
There are too many
Corsairs,
variables at
each
play
one
here.
re-angled, reharmonized,
proceed
and
with
bore-sighted at 300 feet. Sweat
Top
brings
secret.
coffee. Other pilots help hold lights. Nobody sleeps. By dawn, the planes are ready.
This is completely
September
unacceptable.
20th,
I want answers now, Colonel.
1943,
Get out of my
1140
sight.
hours. 8 VMF 213 Corsairs
violation.
intercept a formation of 12 Zeros, escorting 8 Betty bombers near Empress Augusta Bay. Lieutenant Hansen, flying one of the newly modified aircraft, dives on a bomber. At 300 feet, he fires a 2-second burst. The right engine detonates, the wing folds, and the bomber plunges into the sea. He
You
rolls,
dare
lines
contradict
up
me
on
with
a
this
0,
drivel?
and
This is
fires again.
completely irrelevant to
1
the mission.
second.
Get out!
The cockpit disintegrates. 2 kills,
Understood,
15
Colonel.
seconds,
We are
240
prepared for the
rounds.
objective.
The battle lasts 12 minutes. 15 Japanese aircraft destroyed, 0 American losses. The math is staggering in 1:1 kill ratio
This
in a
ground is
single
ours.
engagement.
We will
Word
not
spreads
yield.
faster than gunfire. Pilots call it the McCarthy fix.
We lost 3
Engineers
planes because of
call
your
it
incompetence.
impossible.
My men are
Commanders call it
exhausted, Colonel. We can't keep
insubordination.
this pace.
But everyone sees the results. In less than a week, VMF 214 Pappy Boyington's Black Sheep adopts the modification. Within a month,
what in the
every
name of-
Corsair in the Pacific is reharmonized to 300 feet. Combat statistics transform overnight. Ammunition per kill drops from 890 to 190 rounds. Kill ratios triple. Corsairs, once mocked as wasteful, now dominate the skies. The Japanese
Watch
notice
the area, move that
immediately.
equipment. All right,
A
standing
captured
out.
pilot
We need
later
more rivets.
testifies, "Before, we could dodge. Now when they fire, there is no escape. Their guns are like a solid wall." Marine radio intercepts confirm the panic. November 3rd, 1943 Tokyo Command issues an emergency order.
Long night, huh?
Warning to all units.
Thanks, buddy.
American fighters
Appreciate it.
possess new weapon modification. Their fire is concentrated like a laser. avoid engagement below 500 meters. A new kind of fear spreads through the Imperial Air Corps, not fear of the machine, but fear of the men who learn to perfect it. The Pacific Theater's balance begins to tilt. From September to December 1943, Marine Corsairs shoot down 487 Japanese aircraft while losing only 43 of their own, an unprecedented ratio of 11.3 to 1. Efficiency soars by 368%. For the first time, Marine pilots return from sorties with ammunition to spare. But numbers tell only part of the story. What McCarthy accomplished transcended engineering. It shattered the invisible wall between hierarchy and reality. He proved that innovation, the kind that changes wars, rarely comes from top-down orders. It comes from the quiet courage to question them. By January 1944, Pappy Boyington himself flies a McCarthy modified Corsair and ties Eddie Rickenbacker's record with his 28th kill. Before McCarthy's fix, he tells a reporter, "I was a good pilot with mediocre results." After his fix, every trigger pull was a kill. Even the engineers who once called it reckless are forced to admit their mistake. The Bureau of Aeronautics finally performs stress tests and discovers that McCarthy's crude steel reinforcement plates actually improve wing durability under combat load. It is one of the great ironies of military history, the unauthorized repair that made the official manual obsolete. Yet McCarthy's name is nowhere in the report. The modification is credited simply to field innovation under combat conditions. No medal, no citation, just results. But to the pilots who fly his Corsairs, that's enough. By late 1943, the Pacific War had changed its rhythm. The Corsair, once dismissed as an overpowered, underperforming brute, now carved the sky with surgical precision. McCarthy's modification transformed every pilot's experience, from desperate spray and pray firefights to cold, controlled execution. The numbers proved it beyond dispute. 487 confirmed kills in 4 months. But the real transformation wasn't mechanical, it was psychological. For the first time in months, the Marines believed their luck and their skill had returned. They had a weapon that finally matched their courage. Captain James "Jimmy" Sweat, the man whose gun camera once recorded only near misses, now led combat patrols with mathematical confidence. October 17th, 1943, he engages 6 Zeros over the island of Vella La Vella. 4 minutes later, all 6 are gone. 980 rounds expended. He returns with 1,320 still in his guns. For a Marine aviator in 1943, that's not victory, it's resurrection. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Robert Hansen becomes another legend. In one morning engagement, he shoots down 5 enemy aircraft using just 750 rounds. He lands, refuels, and takes off again, adding 3 more kills before sunset.
Couldn't do it without you,
Hansen
Corporal.
writes
Well
to his
done.
parents,
Glad to help, sir.
"There's a sergeant in our squadron who changed everything. He adjusted our guns so they actually hit what we shoot at." Sounds simple, but it's the difference between living and dying up here. That letter would be found months later, after Hansen was killed in action. He never made it home to buy McCarthy that promised drink. Within weeks, the Japanese begin to adapt, or try to. Intercepted radio logs describe a new reality. The American Corsairs fire a wall of bullets. When they aim, we die. The Japanese even coin a nickname for the new weapon configuration: concentrated death. An entire empire's air doctrine built on agility, maneuver, and nerve is suddenly rendered obsolete by a mechanic's midnight idea. Between September and December 1943, pilot survival rates improved fourfold. Weekly Marine fatalities dropped from nearly 5 per week to barely 1. The Marines no longer limp home on empty ammo belts. They return with confidence and vengeance. Every burst is a guarantee, not a gamble. And yet, amid the victory, there's silence in the official record. No letter of commendation, no promotion. McCarthy remains just another enlisted man. His invention spreads like wildfire, but his name vanishes in the smoke. The Bureau of Aeronautics, embarrassed by its earlier warnings, quietly publishes a revised manual in early 1944. Standard gun convergence distance, 300 feet. The author listed, WWII Engineering Staff, not McCarthy.
Sergeant in our squadron.
Still, among the pilots, his legend grows. December 1943, VMF 213's Christmas party. Sweat, now with 15.5 confirmed kills, stands before the squadron. He lifts his glass. Most of you don't know Mickey McCarthy. He's not a pilot. He's the guy who loads our bullets and tightens our bolts. But I'm alive because he ignored orders and did what was right instead of what was authorized. I shot down 5 Japanese planes in one mission because my guns finally hit what I aimed at. Every pilot in this squadron owes his life to a sergeant who thought he knew better than the engineers, and turns out he did. The room erupts in applause. McCarthy, standing at the back, blushes, mutters, "I just adjusted some bolts, but those bolts, tightened in defiance, saved 800 Marine lives in 4 months." It's a story of innovation born not from laboratories, but from desperation and grit. It's what war does best, stripping away bureaucracy until only results matter. By February 1944, McCarthy's convergence is Marine Corps doctrine. His crude reinforcement plates, once scorned, are now factory standard reinforcements. Engineers confirm they not only prevent cracking, but also strengthen the wing's structural integrity. The irony is poetic. The uneducated mechanic corrected the nation's best-trained engineers, and the results ripple outward. The U.S. Army Air Forces take notice. The P-51 Mustang, the P-47 Thunderbolt, even the P-38 Lightning all adopt tighter gun harmonization inspired by McCarthy's fieldwork. Within months, American kill ratios across all fighter models rise by 30%. Pilots report more decisive hits and shorter engagements. A simple idea, bring the convergence closer, has changed the geometry of air combat itself. But the man who made it possible remains anonymous. To his superiors, McCarthy is just another sergeant with grease under his nails. To the pilots, he's a quiet savior. To history, he's invisible. The war moves on. By 1945, the Corsair's kill ratio reaches 1:1, the highest of any Allied fighter in the Pacific. Military historians credit the plane's speed, climb rate, and rugged design. But those who were there, the men who flew it, know the truth. Its deadliness began the night Mickey McCarthy broke the rules. War has always rewarded results over obedience, but rarely has one act of defiance been so quietly revolutionary. When the war finally ended in 1945, the legend of the F4U Corsair was sealed, whistling death. The Japanese called it, but few outside the squadron tents of the South Pacific ever knew that a quiet man with a wrench had made it lethal. Staff Sergeant Michael Joseph Mickey McCarthy returned home to Boston that winter with no medals, no press coverage, and no mention in any official record. He was simply another Marine veteran, one of millions returning from the largest conflict in history. yet the ripples of his work would shape air combat for generations. McCarthy opened a small garage in South Boston. To his neighbors, he was just Mick, the quiet mechanic who fixed Buicks and Fords and never talked about the war. He married Helen, a school teacher, and lived an ordinary life. When a customer asked once if he had done anything important during the war, he smiled faintly. "I loaded ammunition," he said. "Nothing special." But the pilots who'd flown his modified Corsairs never forgot. Captain James "Jimmy" Sweat went on to become one of the Marine Corps' most decorated aces. 15.5 confirmed kills,
MacArthur,
a Medal of Honor,
Marshall,
and a permanent place
Miller,
in aviation history.
No McCarthy.
Yet, in his 1989 memoir, Sweat wrote something that never made it into the official citation. "I'm credited with shooting down 15.5 Japanese aircraft. People call me a hero. The truth is simpler. I had a plane with guns that worked the way they should have from the beginning." A sergeant nobody's heard of made that happen. Mickey McCarthy made me an ace. He made all of us aces. Lieutenant Robert Hansen, before his death in 1944, wrote home about that same sergeant. His letter, found decades later, reads like prophecy. "There's a man here who fixed what the engineers couldn't. If I make it home, I'll find him and buy him a drink." He never made it home, but hundreds of others did, because McCarthy had the courage to break a rule that deserved breaking. The 300-foot convergence standard he pioneered became universal. Every American fighter that followed from the P-51 Mustang to the P-38 Lightning adopted similar harmonization based on his field modification. After the war, the U.S. Air Force's technical evaluations confirmed it increased hit probability by more than 30%. The principle carried forward into the jet age. The F-86 Sabre, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, even the F-35 Lightning II all designed their gun systems around the same logic McCarthy discovered by intuition and courage in 1943. Modern military engineers might describe it as concentrated short-range kinetic optimization.
The truth is simple.
McCarthy would have called it
I
making
had a
every
plane
bullet
with
count.
guns that worked the
When
way
he
they
died
should
in
have from the beginning.
1979, at age 62, the Boston Globe obituary was 3 sentences long. Marine Corps veteran, mechanic, beloved husband. It never mentioned that he
truth is
changed
simple.
aerial warfare forever.
I had a plane
8
with
years
guns
later,
that
the
worked way
Marine
they
Corps
should have from
Aviation
the beginning.
Association quietly
You can see the
installed a
delicate
small
nature of
bronze
the paper
plaque at the
here.
National
And the
Museum of the
handwriting,
Marine
though
Corps.
faded, tells
It
a
listed
deeply personal
87
story from
names
the front
under the
lines.
heading Unsung Heroes of Marine Aviation. Near the bottom, in small letters, one line read, SS St. T. Michael McCarthy, VMF 213, Ordnance Crew. No explanation, no ceremony, just the name. But for every Marine pilot who visited that museum, the meaning was clear. They knew. They'd seen his work in the tracer streams that once saved their lives. War is often remembered through medals, speeches, and monuments. But real
Making
progress,
every
the
bullet
kind that
count.
changes outcomes, usually begins in the shadows, with men and women who solve problems no one else can see. McCarthy's legacy isn't just mechanical, it's moral. It asks a question every generation of soldiers, engineers, and leaders must answer. Do you follow the book, or do you fix the problem? Because sometimes courage doesn't look like flying into enemy fire. Sometimes it looks like staying up all night with a wrench, trusting your math,
When we
and
look
betting
back
your
at the
career
echoes of
on
the
what
past,
feels right.
we must ask ourselves,
McCarthy proved that genius
what
doesn't
legacy
require a
are we
rank,
leaving
a
behind?
degree, or a title. Just clarity, conviction, and the refusal to accept good enough. He didn't fire a single round in combat, yet he made every Marine bullet count. He didn't win medals, yet he gave others the chance to come home. And he never asked for recognition, because for men like him,
Thanks,
results were reward enough. The next time someone speaks of the Corsair's legendary kill ratio, 11 to 1, the best of the war, remember what that number truly means.